Harlem, South Bronx. Those are tough places, Joe.
Yeah, I just don't think that we should whine about what we don't have. If you're, if you know, the way you make it sound is like you want a handout, you want the opportunity, you want somebody else to give you the opportunity to be somebody. Forget about that. You know, if you want to be a principal, then go for it. Go after that education. Go to college. Get your master's or whatever you need to do. You see?
It's not.
If you're going to wait around for somebody to give you a job or the opportunity just because your skin is brown, forget that. Go work in the fields and go pick some pickles or something else.
We're not talking about standing on a corner asking for handouts.
No, but you want people to get a chance to get an opportunity to become school principals, and what else?
I'm talking.
You know,
I'm talking specifically.
If we're gonna if we're going
that are qualified. I'm talking about people that are qualified
it's a dog
to do the job that do not have the opportunity
then you need
to do
we
the
need
job.
to understand it's a dog eat dog world. If you're going to be a principal or a contractor or anything, you know there's competition out there. Somebody else is better than you, or you know, or you're better than somebody else. You've got to take somebody else's job.
No, that's not
You know?
true. This is what it's all about. Is who you know. It's who you know that gets the jobs. In many, many, many instances, what I'm talking about is truly the most qualified person getting the job.
Yeah.
And there are people that are very qualified that don't get the job because they're black, they're white, they're brown, they're red, they're yellow, they're fat, they're skinny, they're tall, they're short. People get discriminated because of all those things. They don't say it because they know it's a violation of human and civil rights.
Are you referring to the state of Oklahoma?
I'm referring to everywhere, everywhere.
In Texas, there's a lot of opportunities for Hispanics and Mexicans and Latinos and people from India.
Well, let me put it this way.
You know,
there's a big difference.
There's a lot of successful people.
There's a big difference
Texas.
between the Hispanic population in Houston, in Dallas, in Fort Worth, just to name a few cities, and Oklahoma City. We're talking about Houston, 850,000 Hispanics, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about 500,000 in Dallas, another 350,000 next door in Fort Worth. We're talking about big numbers. And when you talk about big numbers, you're talking about power. There is power in numbers. We don't have those kind of numbers here. We're 10% of the population.
We don't have
here,
those kind of numbers
10%.
yet, because remember we came over here in the
ours.
70s, and I didn't have a lot of Hispanic or Mexican friends in Oklahoma. See, but now look around. Everywhere, in fact, we don't even say hi to each other anymore. You know, when we see each other in the street, because hey, they might drive by and do a drive-by shooting. You know, we're killing each other. You know, back in the 70s, and I've met somebody else was from another country or Spanish, spoke Spanish. Hey, how you doing? ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Cómo está? Where are you from? We started making friends. See?
Well, you know, now you're talking about violence. Well, violence is a reality. Look at 2011, Joe. Just look around. Didn't we just finish one war in Iraq? And we're going to continue to have that other war, Afghanistan, in 2012. So there's lots of violence over there. So violence has always been there. And, you know, I tell you, I read that book, War Myth, and it talks about violence. It's always been with us. War has always been with us. In a 3,000 year period in history, we had 8,000 wars going on, and the average peace treaty lasted 2 years. So there's always conflict of all kind, there's always violence of all kind going on in the world. So that's just a reality. And so civilization is something that brings with it violence. So we have all kind of violence that's occurring on a daily basis. There's abuse, men against women, spousal abuse. I mean, that, you have a couple of million cases happening a year,
Well,
and those are just reported cases, Joe, not the unreported cases, not the verbal abuse.
Yeah.
That's not even counted there. I'm just talking about physical abuse. So violence is something that's always with us, and I'm saying we should not accept it. And we should do something about it. Just like war, we shouldn't accept a war.
But we do. We're pacifists, you know.
Well, you think about it. We are supposed to. Let's talk about the difference between a soldier and a policeman. Okay? A policeman enforces the law, correct? That's his responsibility, or her responsibility. A soldier's responsibility is to destroy the enemy. That's it. Once you turn them loose,
Yeah.
that's like turning out a pit bull. They go out there to destroy the enemy. It's no holds barred, all's fair in love and war, right? So they go out there to destroy the enemy. So we do it patriotically, but the ones on the other side, the enemy, they do it patriotically as well. So they go out there patriotically, and God is on our side, God is on their side, God is on both sides. And, it's Christians against Christians, it's Christians against Muslims, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line, the reason that we have war is because there's some economic gain involved there. People fight over resources, they fight over money, they fight over land. And it's always been that way. All the empires, like I said, World War I and II, it was all about, the Japanese and the Germans wanting what the French and the English had.
Yeah.
And so we are now the only superpower in the world. So that has a responsibility with it, and we act like what we are. So
Well,
we are a superpower, we act like a superpower, we don't act like a third-rate power, we act like what we are. So that means that we do things sometimes in a heavy-handed
yeah,
way.
but I believe there's a double standard. We go out there and we preach democracy, human rights, fairness, trade for every country, but yet we pass laws that limit and say otherwise.
Like I said, the reason that we have wars is there is some interest, usually economic interest. The war between Carthage and Rome was a mercantile war. They wanted to control the Mediterranean and all those ports that they had where they could get the resources, the natural resources from the western part of the Mediterranean. When the Carthaginians were defeated in the First Punic War, they couldn't go west anymore. That was one of the conditions of the peace treaty with Rome, so they turned east. So when they went east, when they conquered Spain, they discovered silver mines, and then the Romans said, hey, those guys got silver over there, and we beat them once, let's go take them out, get that silver. You see? So when we go to war, okay, hey, there's oil in Iraq, right?
Somewhere.
Let's go get that oil. They're number 3 producers in the world, number 4. We're not in there because, we wanted to take out a dictator. There's a whole bunch of dictators all over the place. We don't take out all the dictators, right? But that particular one, was sitting on oil reserves that the world needs. So we need a stable source. The American people want cheap gas, Joe.
Yeah.
demand cheap gas. And believe me,
And-
if we had to pay, $30 for each gallon of gasoline, we would be demanding war in the Middle East to get cheap gas. Go get that gas. Let's pay $3 a
Well,
gallon,
You know,
not $30.
we're paying $3 a gallon right now, but in the '70s it was 35 cents, 29 cents. So it's like paying $30 a gallon. Our income is.
I remember
know.
when a barrel used to be.
I used to work
I
for
remember-
$1.25 an hour.
I remember when a barrel used to be $1. I'm that old.
Hmm.
And it went up to $2 when they formed the
OPEC.
OPEC. When they formed OPEC with Venezuela was the one that really started that ball rolling, because the Arabs, forget it, they weren't part of the game. They provided the resources, but the Western powers had the technology. The Arabs didn't have the technology. We had the technology. It's just like Mexican oil, right?
Mhm.
It's American technology that made it possible for that Mexican oil to be discovered, and we refine Mexican oil. So you know how much it costs to do a refinery? We're talking billions, Joe. It's a very technical process. Same thing with pharmaceuticals. It's a very technical process. You have to spend billions just building a pharmaceutical. That's why these pills are so expensive, Joe. And that's technology, and war is technology, and we sell implements of war, and it's big money. So that's what war is usually about. There's a certain it's not about patriotism. Patriotism is just one of the excuses given, right?
Yeah, it's like democracy.
Yeah, because everybody's
Yeah.
patriotic. The enemy is patriotic, and so and God is on everybody's side, not just our side, right?
Mhm.
So we give excuses, but the bottom line is it's all about money when it comes to it. And there's an interest there, and it's the military is just doing their job. It's the politicians. The politicians are the ones that give the order to go and start war and to go attack. The military just follows orders.
Well, I think we need to put things into perspective, because first of all, there's the big business, the multi-billionaires, which basically are the owners
The 1%.
of this country. They put the politicians in place. They pass the laws. They tell them. It's just politicians are just a bunch of pacifiers.
Well, yeah,
you know.
this is the way I see it, Joe. You have multinational companies. So when I say forget about patriotism, I'm talking about forget about patriotism, because these multinational companies, they are patriotic to the dollar, right?
Mhm.
So we're talking about not just an American company out there, but it's a combination of American, Japanese, French, German. There's a conglomerate out there. They're all wheeling and they're dealing. And it's not about Germany, it's not about France, it's not about the United States. It's about the profit margin. And the ones that are calling the shots are those chief executive officers that are making the big bucks. Now they make the big bucks for the stockholders. But the stockholders now, we're talking about the big stockholders, they're that 1% that have the diverse portfolios. I'm talking about these widows that have inherited from their deceased husband. We're talking about, 2/3 of their wealth is inherited.
Mhm.
Maybe 1/3 is hard work. So what I'm saying is, that's the reality. It's just, that's the way it's been. So when we get into hard times now here, money gets tight, the working class people start losing their rights. They start, they freeze their wages, they cut back their wages, they cut back the workforce. we get the hit. The people on top, they always do well. Even in the Depression, the people that own the, you know, tobacco
There's-
companies,